I do recommend anybody aspiring to the pastorate should go to seminary and get a master's of divinity. I do recommend that. But that's a little different than getting your bachelor's or your associate's in Bible. To me, a bachelor's or associate's in Bible is almost a wasted degree. And that's not to hate on anyone who got that. But it seems to me that you end up going 2 to 4 years. You come out the other side with a degree that doesn't make you marketable at all, gives you almost no appreciable skill set with which to enter the workforce. That's what it seems like to me. I don't recommend bachelor's or associates in Bible degrees, but I do recommend masters of divinity. This is my problem, Poetic. You need to pay the bills, and not many churches can afford to pay their youth pastor enough to where that's all he can do full-time. I'm the full-time pastor at my church. I'm the lead pastor, and I am bivocational. Now, I'm in a small town, okay, but there's only one pastor in town that I know of that is full-time of all the churches in town. That's going to be different when you go to a big city, but still, there are a lot of those jobs and a lot of people wanting them. So in the meantime, you're going to have to pay the bills. So what are you going to do? Are you going to flip burgers? Are you going to pack people's groceries? You know, like, that's what you got to think about. A lot of people end up in ministry because and I tell my story a little bit in those videos, so you can check them out for more detail. But if you want to be the youth pastor, why not get a degree in computer science, get a pretty good job in computer science working for a decent-sized company, and then go down to the local church and volunteer to be the youth pastor while you work on your MDiv on the side. Now you have a good degree that earns you an income, and you're getting your master's of divinity, so you're getting the theological training and education you need while you are discipled and mentored at a local congregation. To me, that's a much better life trajectory than I got my undergrad in Bible literature. You know? That's my thing. Not a lot of churches can afford to pay even their one pastor a full-time wage, much less their entire staff. And you better believe that if a church is able to pay a full staff all full wages, you're looking at a mega church in a major city. And there's going to be plenty of people that want that job too. So then if you're going to think about practically how you get into a job like that, well, usually it's I started volunteering at the church. I learned theology and studied theology on the side. I took classes part-time. And I volunteered to help in the youth group. And then you kind of work your way into a position like that. So those are my thoughts. Here you go, Poetic. But Beta Test says the opposite. Beta Test says I have an undergrad degree and an MDiv. Now I'm a pastor. So they got a theology undergrad. Then they got their MDiv, and now they're a pastor. Okay, so that was their trajectory. But notice they got the MDiv. And I'll tell you what, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Beta, but what is getting your foot in the door of your church, Beta, let me pretend I deleted your theology undergrad and I made it computer science. Would you be any less qualified to be the pastor of your church right now? My contention is that the basis on which Beta is the pastor of their church is their MDiv, not their theology undergrad. That would be my contention. Don't know it for sure, but that would be my contention. What you're describing, Poetic, is the traditional path, okay? It's the traditional path. But most seminaries will accept you into their MDiv program with any generic undergrad, and the basis on which one becomes a pastor is not an undergrad in theology, but it's their MDiv. James White talks about how he got his undergrad and he fulfilled the requirements both for the biology undergrad and for the Bible undergrad. And they told him, you can only pick one degree. What do you want? Do you want your Bible degree or do you want your biology degree? And he says he regrets the fact that he got his Bible degree instead of his biology degree. Because if you're going for an MDiv, which most churches require anyway of their pastors, then your undergrad in theology is besides the point. Look, I'm opinionated on this. I'm not mad at anyone who gets whatever degree. I think almost all your MA degrees are useless. Why? Most churches would prefer you to have an MDiv, and if you want to do PhD work, it's almost required to have an MDiv. I called up Southern Baptist Theological Seminary when I was considering which degree I was going to get, because I was going to get an MATS, a Master's of Arts Theological Studies. And I called them up and I asked them, if I applied to your PhD program, what would be your minimum requirements? And they said MDiv. Well, it's like, okay, what good is my MATS then? And so then to me, the same argument applies to an MABS, an MAR, etc. You're going to get all of these inferior degrees to what end? Most churches want you to have an MDiv, not one of those other degrees. And PhD programs want you to have an MDiv. Okay, so that to me makes the MDiv the degree of choice. So then I just worked backwards to the idea of a bachelor's. What good is a bachelor's in theology if I'm getting the MDiv anyway? Nothing. The answer is nothing. If you have the MDiv, those are the credentials you need. Again, both for pastor work and for PhD work. So the degree that really matters is the MDiv. That's the degree that really matters. So I would figure out what's the quickest way you can get to the MDiv, right? Poetic, I want to bring something up here, though. Notice some of Beta's advice. Notice some of G-Funk's advice. Talk to your pastor. Get with your denomination. You were just asking earlier, what are some red flags in a church? As far as I can tell, you're not in a consistent church. You're not in a consistent fellowship, right? Like, some of what we're talking about is inconsequential if you're not grounded in a solid denomination that's helping you in this process. Church work especially, this is true for almost all work, but church work especially, a lot of people are doing the work and then their church helps them go get the degree, right? Like, sure, there are some jobs, engineering jobs, where you go to school, you get your degree, you apply to companies. I just graduated. Can I get an entry-level position with you guys? They hire you on. You're off to the races. In my experience, not a lot of churches function that way. A lot of churches know they're up-and-comers. A lot of churches have identified their youth pastor, their children's pastor, you know what I mean? And then they help them to get their degree and set them up for success. So that's going to be a big part of your decision, Poetic. That's going to be a big part of your decision is what church do you plug into and what do they recommend? I would start going to a church regularly, and then I would go talk to the pastor in private and be like, hey, look, I'm interested in maybe starting with youth ministry. I feel like I might be called to ministry, blah, 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 and then see what the pastor says and go from there. Most churches are really looking for volunteers, people who want to help out, you know? So here's your plan. Here's your life plan. I've mapped it out. You are going to find a good church in Colorado Springs that you can dig your roots into for at least the next 2 to 3 years. Okay, that's plan A. While you do that, you're going to go to community college and get your core curriculum out of the way. All right? Now, you need to make sure it's a reputable one and that those credits are going to transfer to any major universities that you might go to. All right? Be it you're going to get a business degree or a theology degree or whatever. In the meantime, what you're really going to focus on is getting as plugged into that church as you can. I'm talking you go to almost every extracurricular. You go every Sunday for sure. If they have a Sunday evening, you go to the Sunday evening. If they have a midweek Bible study, you go to the midweek Bible study. You talk to the pastor. You talk to the youth pastor. You tell them you want to train for ministry. You think you're called. And you need help and direction and guidance. All while you do your core curriculum at your community college. Okay? You build a relationship with them. You figure out what path they would go down while you're getting your core curriculum. Then, for the next 2 to 3 years, while you're getting your core curriculum and getting all that figured out, you've built a really good relationship with this church and the pastor, and now you can decide what your longer-term goals are going to be. Are we going to go to Bible college and get a bachelor's in theology, leading into an MDiv? Are we going to get a computer science degree for our bachelor's and then finish off our master's with an MDiv? You'll have all those options ahead of you, and you will have guidance and direction in how to do it. Thank you so much for watching that video. If you enjoyed this video, you might like this one as well. It's on a similar topic. While you're here, would you please click the subscribe button? And if you would like to support us on Patreon, please check out the link in the description below. It really helps us out a lot. Also, we have many other links below in the description that can help you get plugged into what we're doing here on YouTube. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do. Take care. God bless. Bye now.